Where is
It's a reputable builder. You get to the end of those diagrams, there's some pictures that show the actual, what it's gonna look like. Just keep going down. They'll probably want to talk about it.
We'll find out.
They still haven't started on, remember when we had the meeting in the old community building and the guy was going to put a matching
Yeah,
awning
I
up
know.
or whatever?
Yeah.
I think I've seen him.
If she needs me, just bring her right back.
She'll be covered.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything. And the lady below that's been there, she closed her antique business down, so there's nothing
Yes.
below there too.
Right, and the 3D deli is gone, is out of there, which is too bad. You know, the food was pretty good, but the hours were terrible.
Well,
And well, for different reasons, but just it wasn't consistent with it.
they tried, and it would have been great.
Yeah. Yes, it could have been. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Dave, are we okay? Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here, taking the time to be here. We appreciate that. This meeting is called to order on June 7th, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. Dave, are there any citizens with business not on the agenda who would like to speak at this time?
No, sir, not received any speaker forms or had any comments from the public prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the agenda, item number 1. Consideration and possible action regarding proposed exterior modifications to the Cozy Grape located at 14340 Liberty Street in the Historic Preservation District.
The commission, you have the information in your packet. The owner and his contractor are here, and I'll refer the details to them, but effectively what they're asking to do, if you're familiar with the Cozy Grape Restaurant, on the east side, or the Count Street side, they're contemplating the idea of taking down the back patio, keeping that space that's underneath it, but building a structure that would allow for the 2-story building to extend over the top of that. And with that, if Tom or Mr. Mitchell has any.
So basically, where you look at it right now, they have the outdoor patio. We would just tear that structure down, take out the wooden deck that's out there and the roof that's above it. Go back with a concrete patio that's going to be designed to support steel structure to have a second story above it, and it would tie into the second story that's already existing on Cozy Grape. We would just walk out the second story that's there now, and we just basically go into a new room that's above the patio instead of it just being a room above the patio like it is currently.
And I mentioned an all-new foundation, extensive concrete foundation.
Yes, all new foundation.
Okay.
And the top part of the siding would just be a continuation of the existing siding, the existing building, so it'd be same color, same material, same everything.
So does the footprint stay the same as the original?
Footprint stays the exact same, no change in
Okay,
footprint.
okay.
Is this just preliminary?
Yes.
So this is like a feasibility deal right now?
I didn't know if there was going to be anything that you guys wanted me to incorporate in there or request.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
I know with this being in the historical preservation district, it's not a historical landmark, but we still have the colors and the facades and everything to make within the historical district.
So the colors and like I said, the material walls.
Yeah, so, for me, everything is, what you're doing is well within what's there already. You're just basically flipping
Yeah, and
up and down.
once we get.
Yeah, the only thing I like to see is when you come back is your colors, your design, your
Yep.
exterior
rendition made.
works. Other than that, as long as everybody's in understanding that, we need to follow the, section 98 of the codes and ordinances, we'll be fine.
Okay.
What kind of a capacity are you going to add in terms of seating?
I'm sorry.
What's the seating capacity that will be added?
I anticipate maybe 50, but then that's up to the fire marshal.
And how is the parking situation now? Like, I know there's a parking agreement, I would imagine, with Clevenger. Is that correct?
You know, I've got access to both lots, even though one is owned by Phil Clevenger. And I have a deal where, you know, my customers can park on his. So, you know, I don't anticipate any issues with parking. There's always been an issue with downtown parking, but as it stands right now, I don't anticipate it to change.
And the bottom part is we're not adding seating there, it's already seating there, it's just gonna be concrete.
Just the second floor, basically.
Yeah.
So the first floor will be still an open porch look to it, whereas the second floor will be closed in, and I assume some windows of some kind.
Yes.
But as Bill was alluding to, tonight, we're just looking at the preliminary. There'll be a time when we look at the final architectural plans, just as we normally would. Just one other question I had. On the drawing, it looked like a balcony on that, coming across, I made a note here. Oh, on the south side, in the drawing, it kind of looks like a balcony or something. You know, right now where the mural is and all that, and I know we're still in the early stages, but you've got in the front, you've got a balcony. Was there some type of wrapping that around? Because the drawing has got something that looks like balustrades to the left of the enclosed area, which would be, yeah.
Can I come take a look at it?
Yeah.
I can't give the draw.
And
Jeff, I think what you might be talking about is, we were going to have,
So that is the existing porch right there that's upstairs.
Okay.
So basically where that porch is, that's the second story, that's where
Okay.
it's gonna come out. So that is actually existing already.
Okay, this is what I was, if you could look at this one. See, that right there?
Yeah, that's existing right now.
Okay.
This is just a long picture of what's already there.
Okay.
This is the only new stuff. So right now, this porch up there is gonna actually get enclosed with the second story.
Okay.
But that's existing right now.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And we'll look forward to seeing the detail.
So this is not a current picture of what's actually there now. There's a ATM there. And from my memory, it's just a single entry right now? Or is there a back entry off of McGowan, whatever that street's name is?
there's an entry coming off the back patio into the parking lot, just to the west of the ATM machine.
Again, the idea here was to give this to you guys, you know, early on before the architectural fees are incurred by the.
Is it commercial or business or personal when you're enclosing it? What's it for?
It's commercial.
Okay.
People will be going in and eating upstairs, and so you're just extending that area, possibility of 50, with the approval of the fire marshal, maybe 55.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which you're doing now. The upstairs has been all dining now for quite some time.
Oh,
Yeah.
probably the last 5 years.
Yeah, okay,
So it's basically just an extension of that.
okay.
So it's just seating, not more kitchen or anything like that. It's just more seating. Okay.
The same bar area that's upstairs right
Okay.
now will still be servicing that new area.
And appreciate you addressing the roof line on the back, because that does, when it becomes a two-story, it's a whole different look, and that, I can see where you've got to go to that type of a roof.
Yes.
Where we still have the parapet in the front. I think on the front, so the front won't change.
Is that something you want to see on the front?
On the street? Well, yeah.
It's basically a facade, so.
I know, and that's a good question, because I just, driving around and seeing, we still have some of that, but right next door, it doesn't have it. So it depends when they were built and how they were built.
Because right now behind it is kind of just a gable with the
Yeah.
facade in front of it. And we're just going to tie into that, and then come out on the street side. I mean, we could, it could be a hip or a gable, or we could put it back, whichever.
Well, on Liberty, it does work with the bank and with the other two or three of the other buildings, but they don't all have it either. So, but that's something you might want to think about, how you want to, what makes sense. To my mind, it's like, hey, you have the old history in the front, and then gradually changes as you get to the back. It becomes the new look. But something to think about. But we call that a parapet, right?
Yeah.
False wall is above it.
But in the back, it no longer makes sense because of the size and the slope.
I think the design is fine. Again, my only concern is the parking issue. I don't know, if there a parking code, are all the downtown buildings exempt from parking restrictions or requirements?
They are not, but there has been historically just a limited amount of space,
Yeah.
on their side to apply the same parking standards, so there's been either variance, like in this case, the restaurant, and the square footage of the restaurant were there before they were parking, requirements. So we're not, we don't look at this in the same way that, say, a site that doesn't have any existing buildings on it.
So even if this is an addition, it's still exempt because it's just an addition, right?
You would, we need to look at that parking and that'll be part of that, part of the process.
Okay. No, I think the design is fine, nice.
I like it.
Looks great. Looks like a good start. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the exterior modification at the Cozy Grape Restaurant at 14340 Liberty Street. And that is contingent on seeing the final picture, architectural style of what you're putting up there.
Yeah, once we sign up for it, I'll have a rendition made, so
Yeah, rendition made of what's going up. Yeah.
signage or anything like that that needs to be on their windows and everything.
Okay. Okay.
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. All right, so moving on to item number 2. This is a recommendation only, not for action. This is a recommendation to make recommendations to City Council. Consideration and possible action regarding proposed exterior modifications to 504 Caroline Street in the Historic Preservation District.
Members of the commission, as the chairman pointed out, I was incorrect in the recommendation I gave you guys. Anytime you're involving, and Tom had spoken with, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to Rob today, but in talking with some folks over the weekend, anytime there's a demolition in the historic preservation district or a project that contemplates the demolition of a part of a structure, that approval is given by the city council, so this body would then just make a recommendation to city council. The final disposition of whether or not you recommend approval or not of it. That said, you see in the packet here, we're all familiar with 504 Caroline property. It's there next to the Inns over Montgomery. Recently, the owner, Mr. Haynes, did some of the exterior stuff and kind of take it from the unkept look that it had to just more of a finished look, but the inside was still a to be determined, or kind of as they were able to get into it. Now with that, I will let the applicant, who's Mr. Tom Cox, talk a little bit about the kind of plans for the building. You see the information in your packet. Again, what they're talking about or contemplating is taking down the north wing of the property. That's shown there in the information included in the packet. But feel free to ask him any questions, or if you just want to give just a couple minutes of what your intent of the building is and what you're going to do.
Sure. I'm Tom Cox. I'm President and CEO of Grace Point Homes. We're a home builder and a developer. We have acquired, or we're in the process of acquiring, several parcels of property in and around Montgomery. We were looking for a central location to have our main real estate sales. I'm kind of an architectural buff, saw the house, fell in love with it, thought it had a lot of character, beautiful architecture. We put it under contract with the intent for it to be our real estate office. And as we kind of got into our due diligence, we had our engineer go out there and kind of look at it, and it looked like basically the rear portion, which is an addition that was made, I don't know what year it was made, but it wasn't part of the original structure, has become significantly dilapidated, and I would deem it uninhabitable, and as our engineers noted. But we want to try to keep the main body and kind of restore it to as close as we can to what it was. We don't have any of the pictures, but on some of the interior walls, they kept some of the windows that were part of the original structure are still there. So we would plan on kind of refurbing those, and as we took that back portion off, we would rehab the entire backside of it, kind of restore it to what it was when it was built. The other portion, and I think there's a picture here in the lobby of the house back in the 1850s. It did have a covered second patio, and I don't know how that got removed or what, but we'd like to add that back just to kind of keep the character of the structure. So that's our main intent. That's kind of our phase one. As we got into it, I've been approached by several other entities that would like to, or looking at this location for a particular type of venue or restaurant / bar. I don't know to the extent of the likelihood of that being, but I did go to the next level of kind of designing something with and talking to some of these people as to what it would look like. And as you can see, there's a 3D illustration that basically shows you we would mirror the existing structure kind of next to where the wing place was, and then it would go and it would get an open area in the back, and then that would be for some, we envisioned it maybe being for some type of venue for catch overflow from weddings or whatever coming off the church, just something to have additional use on that space. But right now, that's nothing that we could say we're doing. Absolutely, our main purpose right now is to create a real estate office and to
And the back addition that's been basically deemed not worth trying to save. Basically, it's not cost effective to try to save that.
It's not cost
And that's not part of the original structure.
No.
Okay.
Does the Historical Society have any data that's collected and noted as to what that house is historical, what portion is or isn't, or what's included in the historical side of it?
I don't know if there's any type of register or anything like that we have. I'm not aware of it.
And you are aware that it's a historical site? It's a historical site in downtown Montgomery, and it falls underneath the Historical Society ordinances and how you have to go about doing what you need to do with anything that's downtown Montgomery?
Yes, ma'am.
You knew that when you purchased it? Or you're in contract, right?
Correct.
Are you doing anything to do any other research to find out exactly what is going to be considered historical, and when you start the demolition? I mean, I'm sure our city engineers will be involved, and I'm sure you're going to get permits because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But we've been told a lot of things sitting on this commission. And my purpose is to make sure that downtown Montgomery does stay historical to a point where people want to come and there is actual history that's kept here. I know about the house myself because I had someone who lived there. So when you tell us that it's deemed unrepairable, I'm hoping that someone in the city sees that document that says that it's not savable. Also, your research to make sure that what it is that you're getting rid of is not historical. And if there is anything historical, it's moved to the main structure that you are proposing to rebuild. I say these things because we have these meetings and people come before us and they say things to us and we take them on face value, and also some of the documentation that they, give to the city and give to us as well. And then we leave the meeting and there's slight changes and they have to come back and ask for forgiveness and then, try to move forward. And I appreciate the fact that you're here and that you are sending a message to us saying, hey, look, I know it's historical and I want to do something about that. So I'm just been sitting here and it's almost every meeting we get told one thing and there's some other things that happen. And I know there's things that happen and it's out of people's control. But my concern is that anything and everything that's historical gets kept that way and improved using at least the same material if you can repurpose it, or going to a place where there is repurposed like historical material and staying in character of downtown Montgomery.
Right. But we believe that the exterior siding and the windows is sufficient to remove from what we're demolishing to reapply and clad the existing structure.
And that's a good point, Miriam. I'll just add to that, the Historic Society might be able to give you a little direction eventually if you want to try to maybe have things on the wall or whatever. I just want to say thank you very much for pointing out to all of us that have been driving by that house for years. It's really important that you have that you had somebody really check it out, because it's from the photographs. There's a lot of rot, there's a lot of mold, there's a lot of rain damage. So I just want to appreciate that, because that's something that we all need to understand, that because the reaction could be, oh, you're going to demolish this beautiful old historic house. But no, I think this is the important thing, is that it's established that it is unrepairable on that section. It is nice you're keeping the original house, not the addition, but the original house, and that really does work for you for the historic part of it.
I think that the renderings that you provided, it's beautiful, especially with the addition that you're proposing on it. I also think that having an addition of that scale is the best use of that site. It's maximally productive. I think it's beautiful. It's in keeping with what's there. Just expanding on that, I appreciate that. So I like it.
It seems like what you're planning on tearing down because of condition, you're eventually going to put back up, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That seems good.
Of course, one thing I'll mention, because we talked about this when this first came up at the last meeting, is the proximity to the church, and involving liquor license, and it was mentioned restaurant/bar. But the way you're doing it, I'm thinking, that really creates to really utilize the front for sitting area and to enjoy the main street and kind of the look that we're going for the overall plan. It all seems to work well, and I don't know, that's just something for you to be considering. I don't know how that works with if it does become a bar. Maybe that's where you're talking about is further distance. I think it's 300 feet from the church is the limit. So maybe that helps you.
And that's why we're mirroring the structure. We almost have a Liberty Street address for one portion, and then the real estate office would be, it's clearly too close to,
Yes.
so it'd be a separate.
Yeah, okay. And the only other thing I'll mention, because this came up before, and Dave's got it in the paperwork, and it looks like you've considered this, is that old Victorian, the big historic house behind it, that the way you've got the drawing with the parking, 22 parking spaces, that would stay quiet back there, which I think would be ideal, because our only concern about going from residential to commercial was because of any possible impact on the homes. But that's another subject, so I won't get into that. But Yeah, whatever goes in there, it looks to me like just like the other businesses that all front on Liberty, they're all pretty quiet in the back, and especially after 5 o'clock. So, just things to think about.
And right now, it's commercial use that you have, is your main focus is commercial, not a residential, correct? Okay. Just, because last time when they asked if we could make it commercial, and now we're having a public hearing.
Again, just as a reminder, this is a recommendation to council, whatever the decision. Commissioner Wright.
Well, I move to approve, or I mean, I guess approve the proposal, or I move
Recommendation.
to recommend approval to council on this item for the proposed removal of that wing of the house and modification to the exterior.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? No opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
Mayor,
Okay.
Very good.
Santa Fe is sending a representative over to that train there. They kind of 1909.
Thank you. Item number 3. Now we convene into public hearing on the preliminary report for a rezoning request from R1 Single Family Residential to B Commercial at 504 Caroline Street, Montgomery, Texas.
For any members of the public to speak, I'll just preface by saying the city mailed out 19 notification letters to surrounding property owners and have not received any comments back from those.
So that means we've had no negative comments.
So does this go to the council, the recommendation?
This will, right, so we are required to have 2 public hearings, which we're going to be back to back tonight.
Okay.
Right.
And with considering anything, any information from the public hearing we're in now, before we open the second one, if there's anything we want to see, and then out of that, after that public hearing, then there'll be the recommendation to council, which they'll act on the 28th.
So yes, the way the agenda is set up is we go right into item number 4 from public hearing. Item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding comments received in the public hearing. So any discussion you may need to have.
Feedback from the last meeting. In looking at the highest and best use of the site, you're considering 4 different factors: physically possible, financially feasible, maximally productive. Oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. I forgot. Oh, legally permissible.
Yeah.
And so I guess the issue last meeting was, well, this property is not. It's, they classify it as commercial by the county, but the city has it residentially zoned. For the county to classify it as a commercial property when it's not legally permissible, that's a red flag that should be easily arbitrated or protested. So I don't know if that's necessarily a reason to, to change the zoning. However, if you look at all the factors for this plat, looking at the surrounding land uses, obviously the highest and best use would be to change it to a commercial use in the future. Right now, I think that it's a prime time to do that. The highest and best use. My only feedback was the rationale for changing it to match what the county has. I didn't think that was sufficient, but just in the overall consideration, I'm a commercial appraiser, And so if I was appraising the property, I'd appraise the highest and best use as a commercial site. But that was just one thing that I saw that, well, the county should be changing their classification rather than us changing ours to match. So I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not saying that I think it's most appropriate as a commercial site. I'm just saying.
What's that saying as far as the best use, that most, you said it earlier, the most efficient and best?
Oh, physically possible, financially feasible, legally permissible, and maximally productive. Those are the 4 factors that should be considered when you're valuing a site. And one of the things that when you're looking at legally permissible is, okay, well, the zoning, can it be changed? What's the cost of that? Usually there's fees associated with that. I don't think in our case.
We do have one.
Oh, there are, okay. But, I mean, if you're looking at surrounding land uses, what's the highest and best use of this site? What would drive, commercial rents or a commercial buyer to the site? I saw that it's currently being, marketed for sale, which we know about, it's under contract, it seems, as a commercial site. So it's going to sell for a higher dollar per square foot compared to a residential property. And it looks like it's mostly in land value at this point. Some of the improvements are, rendered.
And I think in that last meeting too, we really looked at the map, and everything else that fronts on Liberty is commercial. And it just seemed like it all worked. But anytime you go from residential to commercial, the red flags go up because you have to consider people that live around there and all that. So I know we had a good discussion about that, and I think what gave us the confidence was that we know we have the ability to say what actually goes in there. Even the next one that comes in. I mean, it can't just be anything. And
Yeah, I don't want to set a precedent that we're changing our zoning to match what the county has. Is the point of what I'm trying to say. Even though in this case it makes sense. It's just if somebody says, well, the county has me as residential, you guys should appraise the area, zone me to residential, and it's inappropriate.
Yeah, and of course, one of the concerns was with that beautiful big Victorian house back there behind it, you don't want just anything going in there when you know people are living there. You don't want karaoke at 12 o'clock at night. So that was our only real concern. I think after all the discussion we had, we could really keep that from happening because we review what goes in there. Quiet office buildings or real estate buildings, whatever it is. I guess that came up because originally there was some talk way back about a bed and breakfast, which can be quiet too, but you got to see how you do it. So as long as I think is what we felt was as long as we have some controls over the long run, what goes in there, that would cover us on nuisance and noise and that type of thing.
And I feel like when we had the meeting about this proposal for it to be rezoned, I believe the gentleman that was here was really concerned about that. He was really taken back that he was being told that, it's rated for this and rated for that. And I think he was more concerned about that. I think the facts that he gave us and what we took from our understanding of what was around it already and understanding that it is feasible for it to be a commercial rather than a residential, and I feel the same way you do. We shouldn't have someone else telling us what it is that we need to be doing in our city. Our city, that's what we have it zoned as, and we should have the say-so of what it is that it is zoned to and what it's best for Montgomery. So I agree with you there. So.
So, good discussion. We can move on to item 5, really, for the public hearing on final report. Is that correct?
That's a typo, it should just be the preliminary report again.
Okay.
I apologize if that escaped there.
Okay. So, let's see. So back, we're on item 4, discussion, possible action regarding the comments received. So based on our discussion, we should make a recommendation.
Well, you'll be doing that as your last item after this next public hearing. You'll be determining what the final report of the city council is going to be. If there was anything in that discussion that you had or comments that you received from the public that made you change your
Okay, got it.
opinion of it, then you want to do that, but you don't have to.
Okay, we can move right, yeah. So this way we're taking care of everything in one meeting, required 2 public hearings, so this keeps things moving in the right direction. All right, so item number 6, consideration and possible action on a final report for a request to rezoning of 504 Caroline Street.
Just to be clear, you did hold, we do need that second public hearing. Did you already get through that?
We're waiting on 6, right?
Yeah,
The 6th, the second public hearing?
You have the
oh, that was the typo, I'm sorry, yeah, number 5 was the second.
Yeah, 5 is still the second.
Okay, sorry about that. We're back to item number 5. Dave, are there any public comments on this item?
I've not received any.
Okay,
This one either.
good.
Nothing's changed in the last 10 minutes.
Nobody's walked in the door. Okay, moving on to item number 6, thank you. Officially, consideration of possible action on a final report for a request to rezoning of 504 Caroline Street.
Members of the commission, attached is a draft report. Again, this report goes to the city council to advise them of what the commission stance is on the request to rezone the property. There is a draft attached. We certainly don't have to live with anything in that draft. We can make it whatever we want to make it. I pulled this one from the last one, and that's the way these get populated. I've edited it to be specific to this site, but please feel free to amend this to what is the commission's pleasure, and that's what will go to city council next Tuesday. Or, I'm sorry, 3 weeks from tonight.
I have a question. You mentioned something about the trees. Are you going to try to save any of the trees on the property? Has the city said you could or couldn't cut them down, or is there trees that you...
We haven't got to that level yet. We're, a lot of it comes down to how much parking we have to keep on site. It unfortunately can be at the peril of the trees. I mean, I want to save as many trees as possible. There's some...
I'm just looking at the drawings. I don't see any trees. I'm just asking. I understand. I do, because the discussion has been made before. There's another piece of property in downtown Montgomery that's fixing to have something built on it, and the trees are old that are on the piece of property, and they're beautiful. So I was just wondering if anything's been said.
Yeah,
I'm still the owner of the property, and there's dead trees where he's wanting to put the parking lot.
Okay.
I've already surveyed it.
Okay.
When I did my excavation, if you will, for the trees, I left the tree perimeter, but most of the trees that I did remove originally, they were hollow and were a danger to the
Right.
public, just like the barn that's next to it, just of age. And some of the trees that are in there, they're not original trees, they're trees that have grown up just from time being there, meaning like cuckoo trees.
Yep.
I don't know what you call them, but they're not real trees.
But it's just like us driving by and seeing the house, and we had no idea. Like when you met with us, you said, yeah, inside it's pretty bad, but we thought, oh well, okay.
Well, I'm not a
But
professional, and so this is what his build is, and so
No.
I knew that when I first purchased it, I said I was going to give it a TLC on the outside. There was a ton of work on the inside that needed to be done. My contractor looked at it, and he gave me an estimate. That was 2-3 years ago, or when I purchased it, and I felt, he, like I said, this is what he does for a living. So,
but that's what I'm saying is we're asking questions to you because we're doing on site base. We're driving by and we've seen it. Oh, that's cute. That's got character. But you brought to light what it is inside, truly. And so when I brought up the trees, because there's a lot of trees in downtown Montgomery that are old and hollow and need to be cut down, and they fall down during storms and stuff. So I'm gonna bring the question up, because if I don't, later on, when someone's driving by and they see that old tree being cut down, they will come to City Hall and say, why did they cut that tree? Because they don't know, okay? And when you purchase that building and you start tearing that building down, guarantee, all the people that were notified that didn't show up are gonna come up here and say, why are they tearing that down? That's just how it is. So I'm gonna ask the question, so, because people do ask that question, so.
And we all love shade in this heat, and it's to your advantage. You know, if one can be saved and it makes sense, sure, hey, I don't know why you wouldn't do it. So,
I'm just asking because I drive by, there's
But
trees.
yeah, no, that's excellent, and that's what people are gonna say. The only thing I wanted to mention was on the parking. That's another real plus here, 22 parking spaces in the back. That's huge for the city. I don't know if you're gonna be able to share those spaces in the overall, but there may be a way where others benefit from that too. But that does look like, just want to mention that as part of our discussion, that the parking is #1 issue in the city, and to pick up 22 spaces in the back, awesome. So,
And you're trying to keep the main entrance on Caroline Street? Is that what you're saying, the business? As far as, okay.
Yeah, for the residential.
I just, okay. That's all the questions I have.
Maybe one thing I want to add to the report for council is that it's going to isolate, it's going to leave one residential tract basically surrounded by commercial properties, which likely it will go to a commercial use in the future, but just so that they're aware that it's, I mean, obviously they can see, they can see that, but just to highlight that, to bring their attention to.
Are you talking about the one on Pond Street, the yellow house that is up for sale?
No, the property straight to the north of
Okay.
this one. Just so that council's aware.
That's where the pits,
Yeah, I think it's parking.
right, in the parking lot there for the pits.
That's coming, tax assessor didn't get one.
yeah. And was this, we're talking about parking, and I'm sure your building, you all know what you need to do, but we've had issues before about the width of the apron coming into the parking lot. When you got, two vehicles, if it's gonna be two-way traffic, that's always something we really gotta look at. And I don't remember what the width has to be, but I'm sure you've got it there somewhere, for the entry.
Right.
It's a good use of the space. Okay, any other questions? Good discussion. So we're gonna make a,
I move to approve the draft preliminary report and approve rezoning classification to city council.
Do you want the note that you stated?
Oh, yeah, can we add that? Yeah. Thank you.
I second.
we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? The motion passes. Great, thank you. Appreciate you being here to answer our questions.
Thank you.
And looking forward to it. This, wow.
Likewise, very excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so all we need now is a,
I just have one question. Where does the historical preservation district run?
On our zoning map, which is here in the ring next door, if you think about it, it runs essentially from Prairie Street, where the property's just on the east side of Prairie Street, there on the east side of downtown. over to basically where the park is here, the west side of the park. In between College and Fair. That's generally, or I'm sorry, really, it does kind of dodge back and forth on 105 where there's a couple properties in, but most of the properties are on 105.
So it goes from Cedar Break Park, covers all this area?
Right, all the residential district that's in between, again, the Shepherd Street on the west side of the park. To give you an idea, the houses that are just across the street here on Shepherd are not in the historic district. The ones on Caroline, when you turn the corner, are. So it's the Shepherd Street line back over to Prairie Street.
So any structure in that area needs to have something go through us?
Yes, that's the way the ordinance is written.
What happened to the house on Luis and Caroline? Across from the church parking lot.
The one we're not on Caroline at this point, but the one that's kind of halfway between Caroline and 105.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look at that to verify, and I'll follow up with you. I think that one was owned by Christian.
But it's gone.
Right, let me look and verify, because again, that's what I'm talking about, the properties, some of it is in on 105, some of the property that's on 105 is in, some of it is out. And so I just need to look and verify, and I'll follow up with you and let you know.
And as soon as you go south of 105 towards Phil's Roadhouse, that's,
There's nothing south of 105.
No.
But again, there are some places, the majority of 105 is not in the historic district, but there are a couple properties that are
North of 105.
north of 105. So like where the brick buildings here on the corner of the park, those are not in the historic district.
Brick buildings. Yeah, because they're south.
Heritage too.
Right.
Right on the northeast corner of Houston,
Right.
there by the post office, adjacent to the post office. So that's
But
outside the historic district. The property starts with Andy Bean, who is responsible for that. The cemetery, like the old cemetery, is in the historic district. I don't know if the property just this side of that is in the historic district or not. There's no White House there.
how many homes or structures in the historical district are deemed historical? I mean, actually have papers deemed historical?
There's probably, my guess with the badge, like a historical marker, plaque on there, probably, my guess would be 2 or 3.
Do we have does the city have record of those or no?
Insofar as has, the state had on from when they're,
Okay, so we don't have any record, us, for records of what's what?
not that I've ever seen. To your point, that's where you get into some of those that are designated as city historic landmark, but they're outside of the district. There's properties out there that are, like there's one at the end of College Street that's not part of the district, it's just outside the district, but it's about 30 acres that looks like it's designated or was designated as a historical site. I don't really understand what or why. Say like the China Chapel, again, outside of the district, but designated a historic landmark, we can see there, or at least, kind of piece the history together of why that was deemed a historic landmark.
yeah, we do have the dates written, that came up a few meetings ago, from the 1800s up to 1930s or 40s, I can't remember, it's written down somewhere. So the actual, if you know the date that structure was built, that determines it too. I just can't remember what the exact dates were.
But I'll get an answer to you on that,
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, that's, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another, example of, we're getting sidestepped on some things.
Yeah, so look into that and verify, and I'll bring that information back to you.
Okay. Good, thank you. Okay.
I move to
We need-
adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.